Welcome back. We need a clear vision for the future of the East that maintains the integrity of the river corridor. However, there are many challenges to making this happen. I asked Peter Beck and Chrissie Williams of Eastern Vision what they thought about those challenges and what they might be.
Well, one of the most important things I think that we've got to do, which has been right from the very beginning, is to ensure that the community is engaged and involved in the discussions about what decisions are going to be made. Looking for a way in which we can integrate the various wonderful concepts and ideas that are around and ensuring that they can be collaborated with, worked together with, so that overall we come up with an integrated plan for the whole area. For many of us, this is our backyard. And over the next few years, while we're waiting to find out, it could be a few years, I don't know how long it's going to be before real decisions are made for the long-term future, we need to be engaged. The community isn't, I don't think it's fair on the community just to sit back and wait. There's an opportunity now for some interim use, some interesting concepts that can happen here in the short term.
One of the first things we have to do is look at all the information we have on the land, the residential red zone and the land surrounding it, and put that together and say what possible uses could this land have. There'll be some uses that will be excluded because of the geotechnical condition of the land, the risk of liquefaction, the risk of flooding that is required for other purposes. The City Council may need it for their infrastructure. So that and there'll be ecological values that need to be brought forward and highlighted. Pulling that information together is not an easy process. It's really complex, and a lot of the decisions are going to be interdependent. Yep. So where the stop banks go could decide what future uses are. Future uses could then implicate where the stop banks go. Through this work, I think we'll get a number of uses for different areas, and I think that's where it's going to be the hard decisions. Which of those have priority? Sea level rise and climate change is part of that thinking. So we're not planning for the next 5 years. We're planning for the use of this land for the next 50, 100 years.
Absolutely. So one of the issues is people constantly talking about finances, and of course money's really important. It's got a cost, but there's some other bottom lines too, which means, can we afford not to do this? And some of those about the social issues, there's the environmental issues, there's all the sorts of things that help to build communities. And how do we help the people who live in the East and want to come and live in the East, find that they have a place to belong to? Now that's more than just money. And sure, the Crown's got to get something back from the money they spent in buying out the residential red zone, but I think there are obviously ways to do that without having to think we have to put more houses on the ground.
It's all very well talking about having a monetary return on this, and I think we need to start talking about the value that this land can give us. And that's, I often go back to thinking about the value that the environment provides for us. We're totally dependent on it. So I think if we start talking about value rather than financial benefit, I think we will look at this differently. And again, we have that priority around community involved with the river, involved with the land. I think we'll get a really good result.
It's been one of the great opportunities that the earthquakes have given us.
When some decisions are made about future uses, there are going to be some costs involved, and there need to be a lot of preliminary work, concept designs prepared. Raising the capital sometimes is quite easy because you have people wanting to donate to projects, especially if it's something physical on the ground. I think that the biggest cost that is often ignored is around the operational costs. So
let's be realistic about this. If people are going to invest here financially, from wherever they come from, they want to get a return on this. And there may be some interesting ways we haven't even thought about yet, about how land here may be used here, how the council might look at sort of some land swap issues possibly in other parts of the city with this here. I mean, there's some things happening here which maybe don't need to be here as they have been in the past. How the East can actually be not only be integrated within itself, but integrated into the whole of the development of Greater Christchurch.
One of the things I think that is mystifying the communities at the moment is the process where and how these decisions will be made. And I think the government, if they're leading this process, need to start communicating with us all about what the timing is around this, what information needs to be gathered, when there's going to be some real strong engagement with the communities about the future uses based on the information that's gathered, and who and how the decisions are going to be made, and what Regenerate Christchurch role is in this.
The governance and management of the regeneration of Christchurch, including New Brighton and the Otakaro Avon River Red Zone, is about to transition from CERA to other entities. I asked Paul Silk of Development Christchurch Limited to tell us how he thought this might play out in light of recent announcements regarding the proposed Regenerate Christchurch entity.
When the Crown and Council first discussed the option or the opportunity to form a new entity or entities, the thing they challenged officials with was coming up with a structure that advanced the Crown and Council's objectives for regeneration, so something quite distinctive or distinct from the priorities that we were focused on during the recovery phase, but also delivered a step change in approach and leadership, a commitment to putting the city back in front of defining the outcomes that they want for regeneration. And that involves a commitment to early and effective engagement with community groups, but also other stakeholders. So there's the private sector in terms of potential developers and investors, and also a whole range of Crown agencies that are actually active every day in activities that contribute towards regeneration. So that could be health services or education services or any other number of activities. The other thing was the change in leadership. So what we were thinking of there was obviously the creation of new entities, which were independent and arm's length from their shareholder, but would benefit from a strong focus on a single outcome. So in this instance, regeneration outcomes. And I do want to stress that this is a huge opportunity for communities to get back in front of this process of defining outcomes. So one of the questions we often get asked is, at what point will we be involved in decision making? Well, from my perspective, actually the whole point of establishing new entities and keeping them at arm's length to their shareholders, in this instance the government and council, is to allow them to attract the right people with the right skills and let them get on with their job. So what communities should be focused on is actually defining the outcomes. And what Regenerate Christchurch and Development Christchurch are effectively mandated to do is balance the pursuit of public benefits with sustainable economic development. So public benefits will mean different things to different people, but includes access to open space, ensuring that environment and character of areas is recognised and respected, access to new forms of housing, new typologies, good choice, affordability, and access to good quality education and health services, amongst other things. So that sits beside the pursuit of economic benefits as well. And economic benefits could be local to an area, so people will want opportunities for investment in their area, as well as the opportunity to be employed in their area as well as the broader economic benefits that the city gets from having successful regeneration right across the city with it. I think the easiest way to think about this is that Regenerate Christchurch takes very much a top-down approach. So it is about creating the process for developing regeneration plans, which are about that broader set of outcomes that the communities and city are after in terms of what successful regeneration is. Development Christchurch is more bottom-up, so Development Christchurch is much more about how do we leverage the resources that the Christchurch City Council have available to help enable successful development and investment, and how do we work together to attract new forms of investment. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. This city has been waiting for the chance to get back in front of the process of defining the outcomes that they want for regeneration. And regeneration is quite different from recovery. So when we talk about recovery, a city that's got full employment, it's hard to say that it hasn't recovered, certainly in an economic sense. But what we have had in Christchurch is quite divergent outcomes. There are some parts of the city that have done well, and other parts that have a sense of being left behind. And so the focus for Regenerate Christchurch and Development Christchurch Limited is about making sure that we have a greater balance of outcomes right across the city.
So there are changes on the horizon for the regeneration of the Eastern Flatlands, with new agencies playing key roles in this. Coming up, we continue this conversation with Mayor Leanne Dalzell and the Reverend Peter Beck.